We're starting, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli waj'al li waziran min ahli Haruna akhi ushdud bihi azri washkur fi amri فنسبحك كثيرا ونذكرك كثيرا إنك كنت بنا بصيرا ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم وصلى اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Inshallah, we will continue with our discussion on the understanding the ascension of the Prophet. Peace and blessings be upon him. Or so we can also make our individual ascension learning from him, inshallah. So we are at part 19 right now, mashallah. So we've been discussing this quite extensively, alhamdulillah. There's a lot to unpack because how do we really understand what's going on in terms of this universe, our life here, and what are we supposed to make out of it? How are we supposed to see the meaningful aspect to make our lives and living meaningful? So this principle that we're at is the wisdom and purpose of the ascension. So we will continue with the comparison that the author was demonstrating in the first comparison, all the jewels and of a king that needs to be displayed, and he was likening that as an analogy to how the whole universe can be seen displayed with jewels and marvels, wonders, and this whole universe being a palace full of treasuries that need to be discovered, uncovered, and somebody who really appreciates them, someone who can interpret and transfers the message of the all glorious one, the one who made this whole universe, who made me. So someone who announces it, expounds it, and interprets it. So now he's going to go with another comparison to make the case. So if a knowledgeable and skillful person were to compose and write a miraculous book, and on all the book's pages were as many truths as would fill 100 books, and in all its lines as many subtle meanings as would fill 100 pages, and in all its words as many truths as would fill 100 lines, and in all its letters as many meanings as would fill 100 words. And if all the meanings and truths of the book were to look to and point to the transcendent perfections. So this is transcendent perfections of its miracle displaying writer. He most certainly would not leave such an inexhaustible treasury closed and thus worthless. He would surely teach it to others so that such a valuable book gives value to the book, the work, would not remain meaningless and in vain. and his own hidden perfections would become apparent and find their perfection, and his transcendent beauty be seen, and so that he too should be pleased, and that he should make himself loved. Moreover, he would cause someone to go through that wonderful book from the first page to the last and teach him all its meanings and truths, so that the person would then teach them to others. So let me read how he compares that in the next paragraph, and then we can go back. In exactly the same way, in order to display his perfections, his beauty, and the truths of his names. His perfections, beauty, and the truths of his names, the pre-eternal inscriber has written the universe in such a way that all beings set forth and state his infinite perfections, names, and attributes together with their innumerable facets and aspects. Of course, if a book's meaning remains unknown, its value is reduced to nothing. However, a book like the universe, every word of which contains thousands of meanings, cannot lose its value or be made to do so. All right, so a few sentences that attracted my attention: knowledgeable and skillful. So this whole book, for example, if somebody, an author, writes a book, right, they want to organize something to display and promote their book in a way, right? They don't leave it hidden or just let it be, right? So I've seen that in the academia world, that they organize particular events and then they promote their book in those events, right? So they want to sell their book and then they bring lots of copies and they sign their books to show it to and then sell it to other people. Right? So that's how in the world anyone with some knowledge or skill who works on certain things would want to display it. Just like an artist would not want to hide his talent by not painting or anything. So that definitely he would paint and have it displayed or organize certain events or exhibitions in a museum perhaps to display his work or her work. So in the same way, whoever has written this book of the universe, as the author has been mentioning, so everything in the book, each page, each word, letter is said to be very meaningful, valuable, right? So value is something that is being emphasized here. Valuable book. So it cannot be treated as something meaningless, worthless. I mean, all these discoveries which every discipline and at different universities where we're all studying many different aspects of the universe, right? So there's definitely some certain value that we are seeing. We don't regard many things as worthless. That's why we are studying and finding out what the qualities within them are. But the problem is we don't realize where those qualities, what they point to, whose qualities they are at. Right? So all these, whatever is inscribed in the book, basically display the perfections of the author or the knowledge and skill of the one who is writing this book of the universe. And it makes perfect sense that whoever wrote this universe would want it to be known to conscious beings to be so that they can benefit, appreciate it, right? Enjoy and see the treasuries and get to know who the author behind this book is. And of course, whoever wrote this book will surely promote it in a way. He will put avenues or means for people to know and value this book. So he would teach it to others what a valuable book this is, so that all the perfections would become apparent. So this is how the universe has to be seen. Any thoughts or comments on these two paragraphs before I move on? Yes, Brother Ali, go ahead.
You emphasize the importance of displaying it, not keeping it hidden. In addition to this, I agree, definitely, especially the book, every paragraph, every sentence, every word, and every letter in the word is meaningful. Of course, it reminds us the creation, the universe. Universe as a whole, as a book, every galaxy, every being, Earth, for example, is a paragraph, and every being in the Earth, an animal, is a sentence, and all the qualities and body structure, and also their whatever the example you think of, they have their own qualities, their own functions, separate from others, and also meaningful, and details of their body structure also. Organs are perfect sentences. Each organ's sentences, words are perfect, perfectly arranged there. Every cell is perfect, and every particle in the cell representing or corresponding to letters of the book. Every letter is so perfect, so meaningful. Now, no one writes a book and hides it from others. It has to be presented. But this book is such a wonderful book that book that if it is not understood and appreciated as it should be appreciated, it is also it will be also meaningless, because yes, it is wonderful, but people don't come there and don't understand exactly what is the purpose. What is it telling me, teaching me? So we have to understand at the same time, as you said, this book needs to be explained from the cover, from the beginning to the end. Because if some parts are not understood, still, yeah, still this part will be pointless to make so wonderful book and no one understand what it is. That is why he has to teach and educate a teacher to fulfill this job. For example, if somebody discovers a new mission, but no one knows how to use it, what does it mean, and what is the purpose of using? Of course, this person who discovered this machine and designed it definitely will teach somebody, some instructors, teachers, how to use it and for what purpose they should be used. I think this ascension represents this teaching process. Knowing is not enough. You know that. For example, if someone knows, let's say, physics, but being a physics teacher is different. Knowing how to speak English is different. Teaching English language is different. So this person must be educated in the meaning and also must be trained how to instruct other people to use it, to become an instructor. This is essential. This is the essence of Ascension. We have to pay to this aspect of Ascension, and we should communicate with the universe, not only looking at it wonderfully, wonderful working, and also how do I benefit from it? What should I do, and how do I share what I understood with other people? I have to do my Ascension, Miraj, there separately as taking the best Miraj represented by the prophetic Miraj and taking it as an example for myself. Thank you.
Thank you. And seeing the purpose behind this, all these qualities, the beauty behind it, why is it made beautiful? Alhamdulillah, yes, very good. So since this is so, the book's writer will certainly make it known and explain a part of it to each group according to their capacity. He will instruct in all the contents of the book the individual who has the most extensive and comprehensive view, the most universal consciousness, and the greatest human ability. I added human, the greatest ability. Wisdom requires that he should take the individual on a lofty journey in order to teach him all the contents of such a book and its universal truths. That is, he should cause him to travel from the furthest extreme of the levels of multiplicity, which is the first page, to the sphere of divine oneness, which is the final page. Going through La ilaha and then illallah, which is the final page. Thus, through this comparison, you can look to an extent at the exalted instances of wisdom in the Ascension. Any comments on this? Any thoughts that someone got out of this so far that needs to be added or highlighted? So definitely everyone gets a share of, in terms of according to their capacity. One may specialize in one thing or one aspect, but there's also the universal aspect and all the contents, comprehensive view of the book of the universe that one can possibly view it or learn it. So the individual with the most extensive and comprehensive view, the most universal consciousness, and the greatest ability. Yes, Brother Ali, please go ahead.
This is interesting to say that according to their capacity, these teachers will teach them. We understand from this that the previous prophets are given instructions, if you like, their own ascension, and trained, educated as teachers for the people to teach the people they are sent to according to their capacity. One meaning is previous revelations according to the people they are sent to. Now, the Quran is revealed or according to their according to the capacity of this age. But this age is really so different from the previous ages. It is undergoing enormous, unexpected, and unimaginable penetration into the details of the creation. So from this we understand that the teacher of the Quran or the content of the Quran and a teacher of this Quran is going to be a commentator or explaining the meaning of this universe in such a way that every detail must be taught to the capacity of the people. So when we read the Quran, we understand some people like from it is recitation. They enjoy it. They love it. Some people like it is grammatic details and structure. They really spend their whole life to understand this. Some people pay attention to the meaning. Some people, especially the author of this book, really specialized in how are we going to utilize this fruit of the messenger, the prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam's ascension. The fruit of is the Quran, the message. So he became a teacher with this textbook. So this textbook explains, as we read it, as explains the creation in such a way that interprets the creation until it is last details, last detail. So we have to read the Quran or interpret the Quran as the Quran explains the universe. What does the Quran do? Quran explains the universe according to the purpose of its existence, which is introducing the creator, introducing humans' responsibilities, introducing us how we should utilize our human beings. So Quran also must be interpreted for this purpose. What attracts my attention? Not historical events. So everything is told in the Quran must be appreciated in order to understand what human capacity is or human potentiality is, what the potentiality of the universe is. So it is very exciting to notice that. And I would like to read a book about the biography of the Prophet والسلام, which introduces the Prophet as interpreter of the creation of the universe as it is going into the details of the message in the existence of the universe. So every event, every action the Prophet is undergone or experienced in his life is something to do with interpretation, commentary on human nature or human reality, human spirit, or the reality of the universe. If there was a Sira book, any Sira book, which presents the prophetic mission in this way, I would love to read it. I couldn't find it, unfortunately. But we have to understand the ascension of the prophet in this way, that he was instructed what is the details of the meanings of the book of the universe. So that is what the prophet is interpreting the Quran in such a way that it will help me to understand the meaning in his actions.
Do you mean the interpreting the revelation of Quran when you say that?
Interpreting the revelation, the prophet is the best interpreter of the revelation of the Quran in such a way that the Quran is the interpreter of the universe. We have to connect the rings. So the prophet is going to be instructed in Miraj, the Miraj represents this, to be trained to be a teacher by God, how he is going to practice this interpretation of the universe through the guidance of the revelation, the Quran. That is why he went to the Ascension as an abd, as a needy person, and he came back, he was sent back as a messenger, means as a teacher. So his Miraj essentially represents his journey through the creation of through all the pages of the book of the universe. He was instructed in this way. That is why he is qualified to interpret the Quran. But of course, we see not verbal interpretation of the Quran narrated from the prophet, but his life is the interpretation of the Quran. His life is the interpretation of the Quran. So there are some things written, you can deal with them. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I think you answered what was in the chat about the interpretation part. You said the prophet does not interpret revelation, but in his acts, how he is life is living is the interpretation of the Quran in a way. But so we have to basically decipher it. We have to extract and interpret it to ourselves how his acts actually point to the meaning of the Quran in a way. That's how I took it. Anybody wants to add anything?
I had a question, if that's okay.
Excuse me, somebody speaking? Yeah, Muawiyah, go ahead, go ahead.
So I actually joined a little late, so I may have missed this point, so I apologize. But my question is if the prophet, he's definitely the most qualified to give like a verbal interpretation or like a tafsir of the Quran. So why didn't he do so? Because definitely he's the most qualified, but we don't see him doing that.
Good question. It's not verbal explanation that the prophet is going to do. His life is the interpretation of the Quran. So we have to read his life, understand his life as the interpretation of the Quran. But this Quran is the interpretation of the universe. So what does it mean? I think Muawiyah is very much aware of this matter because we are not expecting a verbal interpretation. We are expecting a living Quran in his life, we have to write a seerah books which will interpret his physical life as the interpretation of the Quran. I think that is my answer to your question.
Thank you so much. And that definitely makes sense, right? His life is the interpretation of the Quran. But why, in addition to his actions, why didn't he also accompany it with words? Because he could have done both, right?
There are some words, not necessarily that this ayah means this. No, he advises people. So we have to interpret and understand these advices or his instructions to the people in such a way that it will correspond to the meaning of the Quran, and we have to benefit from them as an interpretation of the Quran. That is why I couldn't find any seerah books written for this purpose. Unfortunately, it is not presented, the Prophet is not presented as a messenger who teaches the Quran through his life, but it is presented mostly in seerah books as a very honest, trustful hero. It is not interpreter of the Quran, which in turn, the Quran interprets the universe. There is no such seerah book. That is our, we have to be ashamed of it as an ummah.
Okay, that definitely answers my question. And that makes sense, definitely. Then I guess my follow-up question is obviously that's a task that we as a ummah need to take on. We definitely need to write that book. But what about the ones that are currently present, like the historical accounts? Are those worth reading?
Depends on what one needs. As we emphasized on the previous paragraph, that according to the capacity of the audience. So the seerah books are written now is good. All of them are useful, addressing the needs of some certain group of people. But as we understand from this description of Ascension, it is not, not yet any seerah books written dealing the prophet's physical life and his physical utterances, it means sentences, in order to explain as a commentary on the Quran. This connection is not tied generally, not of course, definitely, but generally, if you ask any Muslim, who was the prophet? Come on, describe it to me. He was an honest man. He was a brave man. He was a loving man, not as the interpreter of the Quran, because it is missing. You young people should do that.
Inshallah, hopefully. One of us, inshallah. Yeah, you forgot about the military leader, which is also emphasized in the Sirah books. Brilliant commander. Okay. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? All right, let's continue.
So he's
Yeah.
receiving revelation, and then with the way he's interacting with the universe, which we call actions, that's the interpretation. So as long as he's receiving the speech of his creator, he's implementing it in his life. And that's what we're referring to as he's interpreting that message. And if that is so, then because his actions are also purely divinely inspired, meaning there are no mistakes to it, then I wonder about the interpretation part, because when we interpret something, it's tainted, it's filled with our own color as well because of our usage of free will, and then we make mistakes, but there's interpretation there. But in the case of someone who's receiving the speech of the creator of the universe directly, what we call revelation, to set an exemplar for the rest of humanity, there's no mistake to the actions. So I wonder interpretation part, or maybe that's something that we should be assuming along, because as human beings we interpret. So he's interpreting, and at the same time his free will is directly I don't want to say manipulated by the creator of the universe, but it's also acted upon by the creator of the universe.
If I understood you correctly, it is only necessary for the prophet that his free will be interrupted by God, not to represent his message wrongly, because he is an opt. But at the same time, he is the instructor. If instructor makes a mistake, so the creator of the universe corrects him so that the audience will not be misled. But as far as you and I are concerned, we have to watch out for ourselves. We are not representing the Quran. We are representing as a member of the students of the Quran. Students, not the teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Alhamdulillah, thank you. All right, let's continue. Now we shall consider the atheist who is listening, or anyone who is not still having questions about the wisdom in the ascension. Why is it necessary? And listening to his heart, we shall learn what state it is in. And so it comes to mind that his heart would say, I have begun to believe in the ascension now, but I still do not have a clear understanding of it, of the ascension. I have three more important difficulties. So wants further clarification in terms of accepting the ascension in a way. Why was this mighty ascension special to Muhammad the Arabian, peace and blessings be upon him? That is the first one. Second, how is he the seed of the universe? And you say that the universe was created from his light, and also that he was its farthest and most illumined fruit. What does that mean? And the third, in your explanations above, you say that he made his ascension in order to rise to the celestial realm and to see the machinery and workshops of the works of art found in the realm of the earth and the treasuries of their results. What does this mean? So all valid questions in a way. So the answer will come from the first one. Yes, Brother Ali, go ahead.
Before going into the answers to these questions, we have to notice that these questions are not asked by this, how is it called here, the person atheist? No. The author is very well aware that Muslims also have these questions, and they don't ask, they don't dare ask this. What they do, oh, Muhammad is the best man, so he must be the light of the universe, and his the spirit is created before the universe. If my religion tells me this, I accept it. But if you ask them, are you satisfied? Any evidence for it? They will have, Alhamdulillah, I believe in God. I believe in my religion. That is why the believers, don't ask these questions straight away, because they are afraid of falling into denial. But do they have the satisfactory answer? That is why the author is using an excuse of an atheist in the example. Oh, he has at this stage this kind of questions, but atheists are not going to read this answer here. Believers are going to read it. So he is educating us, not an atheist. So we have to read the answer for ourselves. That's a reminder.
Good reminder, thank you. Okay, so the answer about the first difficulty, why was it special to Muhammad the Arabian, peace and blessings be upon him? It has been analyzed in detail in the first 30 words. So here we shall set out a concise list, briefly indicating the perfections of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and the signs of his prophethood, and the fact that he was the most worthy to make the ascension. So he was going to go over a few items, basically describing the perfections of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and signs of his prophethood, which we need to understand a little bit more. Why it was that he was the most worthy. We discussed that he was the most needy, expressed his need, the most questioning. And that's why the one who was most asking exactly what does this existence mean? Why are we here? What is our purpose in living? So firstly, despite numerous corruptions in the texts of Holy Scriptures like the Torah, Gospels, and Psalms, in recent times even, an exacting scholar like Hussein Jisri extracted 114 good tidings of Muhammad's prophethood, peace and blessings be upon him, which he set forth in his risale-i. Secondly, okay, Brother Ali, go ahead.
It is obvious that this explanation will make no sense, the firstly, and the second, third, fourth, until I think fifth. Now, we will pay attention to it, yes, including the fifth explanation is for the believers, Muslims, because they hear this in their culture. We understand from here that he's not speaking to an atheist. He's speaking to Muslims who are not satisfied with this information that they receive. That is why when it comes to the sixth Inshallah, we can have time to read today. Then he will start using the risale-i method to answer these questions. But he is just saying, look, you hear these kind of things, oh, believers, Muslims, but, you know, this is just an information. We have not really we don't have really a substantial evidence to support what these cultures say. But I will give you a substantial explanation based on existential reality. That just we have to read it quickly because the person said there are signs in Torah and Gospel and Psalms. Okay, but this is just his interpretation. So these are just interpretations of the narrations in Torah and Gospel and Psalms. But we have to say, yeah, there is something. Yeah, people talk about it, experts talk about it, but still, it doesn't convinces me that really Muhammad والسلام, is meant in these books. So it is interpretation. That's why we cannot really, and also not reliable because it is a personal interpretation. It doesn't mean that they are worthless. No, they are precious, but it doesn't really satisfy the people of the 20th century. We need more substantial, existential answer to these questions. We will see, inshallah.
Inshallah, that makes sense, yes. Secondly, it has been proved historically that there were many predictions accurately forecasting the prophethood of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, like those of the two soothsayers, Sheikh and Sati, which a while previously to his prophethood gave news of it and the fact that he was to be the final prophet. Thirdly, there were hundreds of extraordinary happenings, famous in history, called irhasat, that is, signs forewarning men of a coming prophet. Like, for example, on the night of Muhammad's, peace and blessings be upon him, birth, the idols in the Kaaba fell from their places, and the famous palace of Khosrow the Persian was rent asunder. So I know in his work, Nursi talks about these irhasat, kind of different events that kind of foretold that the prophet is coming. Basically, some of the trees, while he was young, they kind of gave him shade in a way. So it was observed by some scholars. So there are a few things that showed signs that he is employed, protected in a way. Fourthly, history and the prophet's biographies show that he satisfied the thirst of an army with water flowing from his fingers, that in the presence of a large congregation in the mosque, the dry wooden support against which Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was leaning, moaned like a camel and wept on being separated from him when he ascended the pulpit, and that he was distinguished by close on 1,000 miracles attested to by the verses of the Quran, such as, and the moon split, which is from the Quran, section 54, verse 1, referring to the splitting of the moon, and verified by those who investigated them. Fifthly, anyone who considers the facts and is fair and just cannot hesitate to agree that, as is unanimously agreed by friend and foe alike, good moral qualities were to be found at the highest degree in his personality, and that in accordance with the testimony of all his dealings and actions, attributes and character of the greatest excellence were apparent in the way he performed his duties and proclaimed Islam. And in accordance with the fine qualities and conduct enjoined by the religion of Islam, laudable virtues of the highest order were to be found in the law he brought. All right. Sixthly, as is alluded to in the second indication of the 10th word, it is a requirement of wisdom that divinity be manifested. Requirement of wisdom that divinity be manifested. And this desire of divinity to be manifested is met at the highest level and most brilliantly by the comprehensive worship performed by Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, in the practice of his religion. Also, wisdom and truth require that the creator of the world displays his beauty in its utter perfection through some means. And the one who met that wish and displayed and described his beauty most perfectly was self-evidently the person of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. It was also clearly Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, who, in response to the desire of the world's maker to exhibit and attract attentive gazes towards his perfect art with an infinite beauty, heralded that art with the loudest voice. Okay. Should we pause here? Any comments so far on this, what has been read so far? I think it's pretty clear how the author is making the case. Basically, the art and whatever is this whole book of the universe that we discussed in the previous paragraphs. Now, all that has to be, divine wisdom requires that they need to be viewed, seen, and appreciated by conscious beings. And so a comprehensive worship, so a responding back to what one observes is what constitutes the practice of religion. And that has also, one has to know exactly how to appreciate and respond back to whatever qualities, whatever one is seeing displayed in the book of the universe. And of course, there must be someone who tells me, shows me, right, to appreciate all those perfect qualities and art and beauty. So heralded that art with the loudest voice. I thought was pretty interesting, that made it clear and convincing to be wondering at the whole art and qualities, beauty being manifested in the universe. Again, it was necessarily Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, who, in response to the desire of the sustainer of all the worlds, to proclaim his unity in the levels of multiplicity, announced all the degrees of unity, each at the greatest level of unity. This is a pretty heavy sentence. Proclaim his unity in the levels of multiplicity. So everything that is happening in the universe, whatever different beings, different creations, they all point to an absolute source. So to point to coming from his unity. And of course, there are degrees to that understanding that unity. Each at the greatest level of unity. So each degree, so as man progresses in his understanding and his appreciation, that's the greatest level of unity that one can appreciate.
A unity in terms of how everything is coming from the same source of existence.
Right.
Remember how we mentioned about layers and layers of things like nested dolls, but it all points to the same source of existence. So it was, what is this? Who in response to the desire of the sustainer of all the worlds. In response, I was just wondering about that piece. Maybe he must have asked, requested, while acknowledging his neediness. And in response to that, the creator of the universe
So appointed to be the herald.
directed him.
Flavor, yeah. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so based upon his needs, the creator of the universe directed his attention towards the unity of creation.
Yeah, so each and every being, every quality is the sign pointing back to its creator, that they're coming from the same source, as you were saying. Right? So exhibit and attract attentive gazes towards his perfect art with an infinite beauty and herald that art with the loudest voice. So performing his duty of prophethood of messenger by being the example and telling people to pay attention to what these qualities point to, right? So they are all coming from the same source. Anybody
It's
else?
interesting
Yeah.
because now if you think about it, acknowledging one's neediness, and we said that the prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was the most needy or expressed his neediness to the utmost level. And I feel that even this neediness encompasses or has various levels in terms of comprehending everything in creation, really. Not only what am I doing here, like what's my relationship with the tree, what's my relationship with the fruits, every little details, and therefore the layers of how the universe is set up. And with this comprehensive neediness, a comprehensive answer is thus provided that provides the details of how everything is interlinked, and within each being that we see as we say as a constituent part of another being, it's all manifesting the same qualities but in a different form. So that's interesting. Just the whole neediness, the comprehensive of one's neediness is also infinite.
Yeah. Brother Ali, go ahead, please.
We will notice that after the sixth, Nursi is applying his method. What the prophetic message brought to me, how it corresponds to the message that I can extract from the universe so that we understand his message is the spirit. His message is the spirit of the universe. That is why when we hear that the question was that how do I understand that the prophet's spirit is created before the universe and Muhammad is the one. Of course, the message which is presented to us through Muhammad fulfills this mission. That is how the answer should be. And excuse me. And this author emphasizes that we have to look at the universe as evidence, source of evidence, and read the Quran as it corresponds to the message of the universe and understand that the one who brought this message must be the, if you like, the reason of existence of this universe. That's why it is the seed of the universe. It means from this seed of the Quran that the Muhammad brings grew the Quran, the universe, sorry, grew the universe. It means really the spirit of the universe is the message of the Quran, and Muhammad is the one who brought this. That is what your answer is to your questions. We have to bear in mind the relationship between the questions and Nursi's answer in his way, according to his method, starting from the sixthly. It means the last section and all the way to the end of this section.
Thank you. Inshallah. Okay, so we can stop here for today, inshallah, and continue the sixthly next time as well. And see how this method of Nursi, of seeing all the qualities in the universe and basically ensuring that the universe and the revelation go hand in hand and match each other. So the explanation of revelation is found in the universe. And then all my questions that I have, I can relate them to the universe and the revelation as well. So human answers are, it should answer with, and I can confirm them.
I will understand that what these sayings popular among the Muslim community, the prophet's spirit was created. Of course, prophet's spirit is created. What makes Muhammad as a prophet his message. So his message represents the spirit of the universe. And he is corresponding it, how the Quranic message and the meaning that we extract from the universe corresponds to each other. I don't know whether I could express myself clearly. I think it is. If it is not, Asim can explain it.
No, so his message is the spirit of the universe. So Faria, you were saying you didn't understand it?
Yes, please explain. Thank you.
So yes, as Brother Ali was sharing, seeing but prophethood means that yes, he has a spirit, just like everybody has a spirit. But what makes him a prophet is the message that he brings. Right? So the spirit of the universe, the meaning behind it is what is represented by the prophet. So he'll be the expounder in a way, the one who displays and corresponds basically whatever the revelation is, and the universe make that connection. Add meaning to the universe as well, according to revelation. Does that sound right?
Mhm.
Was that for you?
Yes, I mean, so we were talking about the question earlier, which had the seed part, but why is the prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, considered to be the seed of the universe? It's um, um because let me think about it, sorry. Maybe it's well, if there's a seed, then it must grow. So he had the seed of in need to recognize reality, and so nurturing was provided to the seed. I'm not sure. I'll have to re-listen. Sorry.
We have to see the Quran as the DNA of the universe. See what Quran says, what universe says. You understand that our DNA grew, if you like, into the universe. And this the DNA is the Quran, which is brought to us by Muhammad. That is why it is the beginning of the universe, is very famous saying and widely spread among the Muslims. We shouldn't understand it literally.
Okay, thank you, inshallah. So inshallah, we'll stop here and continue next time, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين برحمة سورة الفاتحة. So for next week, I think we have the clocks are changing, inshallah. So let me announce that.